a minute and a half. Here, I'm gonna put the screen on like that. Okay. If you want to be in the picture there, goddess.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're talking about the goddess, man. You know?
Yeah.
All right. So let me just double check and make sure everything's copacetic. And all right, hang on. We got a little. We have good signal now. We have great signal here. We didn't have it when they changed to 5G, and I was having problems, and I had this new computer, and I thought, well, what the hell's going on? But it was the signal. I don't know what was happening with it, but now it's just like, man, I could do like 6 streams on here, and it would be no problem. They got 5G. I've never had it before. We got 4 people here so far, and my phone is not. Let's see who's here. My phone isn't. Let's see. Go here. We'll backdoor Facebook. All right. Let's see if somebody can tell me. Our sound's good, Michael. Is our sound all right? Yusuf, what's going on, brother? Let's see. Can somebody tell me if our sound's good? Oh, here we go. I got it right here. Finally came up.
Oh man.
We got 14 people in the house.
Jennifer, the goddess, man.
Yeah, we got sound. So I'm going to roll the show out in a minute. Hello, Yusuf, Michael Van Patten. See you tomorrow. Jennifer Waldrop, Charlene Wall, Shaz Hargreaves, Janie Hodges in the house, John Garrison, Mary Cooper, Cicel Finn, Lynn Anderson, Light Loving Christian, Maria Root, Dina Doucet, Sarah Jurek, and I have to stop there because it's filling up fast. So let me roll the show out, man. This is take 2 with my brother, Dion Duplays. Yeah. Dion Duplays in the house. Dion, when are you going to come on the show with me, baby? Do a little I Am Light in India Air Read. So my name is Todd Medina. This is the Soulology Network, and this is our show, Soul Speaks 5D. It's a conversation with, we've got Stephen Aube and the beautiful divine goddess, my dear, dear friend who helped me start SoulogyOneStudios, Elin, is in the house. Stavanger, Norway. How do you say it? How do you say good morning? God morgen.
Morning.
Morgen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a special day, and we have a special show. Actually, Stephen brings a lot to the table, and he can educate dumb bastards like me.
All the time.
I'm just playing. I like to be self-deprecating. So, but no, this is serious, because he told me, Elin turned me on to him about 4 or 5 years ago. And so I started watching his stuff, and it was just very remarkable because he was a divine masculine getting out there doing it long before anybody was saying it, talking about the goddess and this and that and celibacy. And we talked about this on the last show, but so he remarked to me about the solar calendar versus the lunar calendar, and as the goddess energy comes back in, that the lunar calendar is becoming the appropriate, what would you call that? the mechanism that we might need to pay attention to. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Thanks for coming back, my brother. Thank you for everything, both of you. So
I just want to say thank you for Elin hosting me here in Norway, and she's got a beautiful space with a beautiful view, and I've been enjoying my time here, and fantastic country, and thanks for having me in your space.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, and I know she's got all those galactics over there too, man.
Oh yeah, it's created quite the portal here, Todd.
I know, man.
I've shifted quite a bit since I've been here over the week. She's a very powerful woman and has created a very powerful space, and I've enjoyed being here. So it's interesting how this whole trichotomy between the 3 of us has come into fruition. So it's all cool, man.
Yeah, it is, man. And I think because we met, I think we were both in kind of a dark place, if we could use that term. And I just was setting the studio up, and but I know she watched my studio evolve into a portal, and I watched her place evolve into a portal, because we used to send pictures and music, and just that's basically how we communicated. and we both like to dance. But so these pictures she'd start sending, she would have like these, these violet purple haze lightsabers coming out of the lights and stuff. I'm like, whoa, what the hell's going on? But yeah, I know that's a portal, and I know that this there's a beautiful alignment and synchronicity to the three of us creating, what is a triad, here, and and so there's power in that. So I'm gonna start with, I don't know, and I'm not saying I know a lot, but and I don't follow the stars a lot. I'm starting to pay attention because it's working to my advantage when I do, But we've been on the solar calendar, and I guess that's the calendar we use every day.
Yeah.
And then the lunar calendar, you said it has the number 13 in it, which really resonated with me because I think, like Elin, I'm that 13th sign that they left off the zodiac. I think it's So I know her birthday is December the 4th. Mine's December the 9th. And somebody pointed that out to me 3 or 4 years ago. Tony Al, this guy that writes and stuff, and he has the same birthday I did. And he sent me all the information. It totally resonated, man. It totally resonated. Like the figure is like this badass kind of hybrid being with like a saber or sword and his foot on something's throat. I'm like, okay, I'm digging that. But I don't know if that has something to do with it. So what is the lunar calendar?
Well, if we look at ancient times before the patriarchal system and the Gregorian calendar that we're functioning in right now, there was what was called as a lunar calendar. And all the Aboriginals, right down from the native Aboriginals to Mayans to Incans, all of these ancient civilizations ran around what was called a matriarchal system and a lunar calendar. Several different reasons why. The frequency or the tone was more of a universal or cosmic law. So when you're following the lunar calendar, you're more in alignment to the earth and the stars. The interesting thing, if you do some research, it takes roughly 13 moons for the earth to make its full orbit. So when the ancients followed these calendars, they knew when they went through 13 moons that the earth did this complete rotation. And that's when they would pick their herbs, was during full moons. That's when they would harvest and plant certain crops and certain seeds. So that lunar calendar can be all about sustainability, that frequency of 528, that frequency of unconditional love, that frequency of the earth. Every situation that's happened on the planet, whether it was Christopher Columbus coming in and destroying and pushing the Aboriginals deep into the forest, if it was the Emperor Trajan or the Romans coming in and conquering the Dacians and the Thracians, it was always a battle over calendars. So on our planet, there's always been this push to suppress the native teachings of 13-month calendar systems in order to create technology around the 12-month calendar. What I would propose is not to get rid of a solar rule or a solar calendar, but learn how to live within the both of them.
Yeah.
We live in a world that's mechanized. We live in a world that's ran off of these 12-month calendar systems. And it keeps humanity and it keeps this mechanized technological world in a frequency where we're missing cosmic law.
Yeah.
And when we start to forget about cosmic law, we forget about the earth. And when we start to forget about the planet and the very orb that's hosting us, that is viable, that's feeding us, we lose out on so much. And all through time, these native teachings were always about the earth. was always about the plant cycles, was always about the lunar cycles. They had awareness that the sun was feeding our planet, but the calendar existed around that 13-month, 28-day period. There was a man that everyone's heard of by the name of Kodak, who created the camera system. There's corporations that still to this day run from a 13-month calendar system like he did at one time. And there's been many people on this planet that has tried to integrate that 13-month calendar. So it's not about moving into a total lunar calendar. It's building that bridge so you can function between both worlds. Because to all of a sudden change your whole planet back into an ancient calendar system, back into a lunar cycle, is not going to be easy to do, Todd.
Yeah.
So you want to be able, like, for example, your fifth dimensional commerce that you're rolling out, you're going to want to do some research around 13-month calendar systems so you can be in that frequency of 528. Because within that 13-month calendar system, you have something that's called null zones, void of course moons. And whenever there's a void of course moon, whenever you have these null zones, this emptiness, that's the time when you want to go into your spiritual meditation. That's the time when you want to go into your spiritual practice. That's the time where you want to commit most of your energies around those null zones. So when you follow the lunar chart, you have an understanding of these null zones, and you don't want to send emails out during that time. You don't want to conduct business around that time. And a lot of major corporations know about that. Even the military, the military runs off of the 1320 frequency. Yeah.
So would you say, I'm just curious. I mean, first of all, two questions. One, was the introduction of the Gregorian calendar kind of a power play? And two, the powerless, what I call the powerless powers that be, that were holding that 1%, or in that 1%, holding the esoteric knowledge to themselves, they have been incorporating this and following this lunar calendar all this time?
Yes. all these powers to be have all this spiritual and esoteric information. They're just as evolved as we are. I got to sit with some of these people, and I learned a lot from these people. A lot of the stuff that I share, even down to celibacy, that comes from these lunar frequencies too. Everything that I've been sharing with you, Todd, and everything that I've been trying to relay to you is coming from a lunar essence. It's not coming from a solar essence, because a lunar essence is open source platform. There's no copyrights or trademarks or infringements. It's free sharing of information. Yeah. It's recording your music and recording in a 528 frequency or 528 hertz. Even Nikola Tesla back then was recording in 428, which was that heart frequency. So the whole lunar rule runs around the matriarchal system, the worship of the goddess, the divine feminine. And we have to think about it this way. Women have these cycles within their body that revolve around the moon. The tides and things change. The moon is very powerful, and it puts us into a space of humility and reverence and sacredness for this planet that we're walking on. When we get mechanized into a solar rule, we forget about all that. Yeah. It's corporations, it's business, it's cell phones, it's technology, it's computers, and we forget all about the lunar and the goddess rule. And all these ancient civilizations revolved. You can see here if you want, Elin. Yeah, for sure. All these ancient civilizations have always existed around this lunar calendar. Yeah. And when man goes into a celibate state, such as myself, when you move into that celibate frequency, you start to have an understanding of the lunar time and the lunar rule, and you start to be able to connect to cosmic law a little bit differently. And when a man moves into that celibate state, he becomes a genius. You start to grow intellect. You start to have an understanding of how love works, because you're connecting to that frequency. And in order for men to connect to that lunar frequency, they need times of celibacy. A woman's a little bit different. Women need to be stimulated. They need to be played with. They need to be touched. They need to be felt. Man's a whole different mechanism. And when man starts to connect to that lunar rule, They start to vibrate in a deep frequency and reverence for the planet that they're walking on, which is very needed right now.
Yeah.
And if you research men that were celibate on the planet, Tesla was one of them. Some of the greatest philosophers and historians, some of the most intellectual people on the planet, took many years of celibate practice in order to connect to this lunar calendar.
That resonates. And, you know, that resonates. So what you're saying is, you know, because obviously I went through a long period of that. And there was, in that period, as I was doing my own creative stuff, there was, you know, a very high level of alignment in creating, like, you know, music or writing stuff, and even creating Soulogy, you know, creating it as an expression. And it was something, even though I'd never really been creative. And I'm just speaking from my own personal perspective as you're telling me this, because it resonates, but I had never really been creative. I was very much solar. I was an alpha male. I was in corporation. I was the best in the country, what I did, and a senior executive, you know, and just an ass kicker. But something happened, began to soften as I went into this celibacy thing, you know? So I guess that you know, just as a personal reflection, there's got to be some type of congruence there, because I can feel it in my bones. And it seems too, you're talking about the solar, you know, I never thought about this before, but the sun is very black and white. The sun goes up, the sun goes down, you know, it's a very black and white kind of scenario, you know, kind of like an engineer's mind or a constructor's mind. Whereas the moon is what you're saying with the moon's all about what you can't see, you know, the vibrations and the magnetism and the pull and all that. So that makes a lot of sense.
Well, creativity can be birthed out of darkness. In the whole integration of Isis and the whole flow of that goddess energy came from that lunar rule. When you look at all the feminine worship, and again, I put a solid 15 years into archaeoastronomy, 15 years into anthropology and ethnobotanicals. I traveled all over the world and researched these ancient temples. And whenever the goddess was depicted, it was around the lunar cycles. And the gods were depicted around the solar cycles. Now, what's happening for 2020, and this is what's very important, which is the age of the goddess era, are the solar and lunar rule coming into balance. So again, it's not about abolishing and putting an end to a solar rule or a solar calendar or Gregorian calendar, a calendar that's revolved around the Vatican and a religious society. It's about letting room for more of this matriarchal system and more of this lunar rule to come in. It's very important, and especially with someone like yourself, Todd, that is bringing in this fifth dimensional template for commerce. And one of the reasons why I'm doing these interviews is because my radar is fixed on you right now. You have a lot to offer. It's very difficult for myself to find men that can have an understanding of this. And you're in a frequency and an octave right now where you're really supporting the women and where you're really supporting the goddess, and you're allowing these women to be a voice on your program, which is very important, because the men have to step aside a little bit and let these women rule and let these women voice. It's not about the women putting an end to masculine or the masculine telling the women to step up front. It's the balance. When you've had the scales balanced like this, it's the men just have to step off a little bit in order to achieve that. It's very important. And the most intellectual people that have their feeling centers activated have an understanding of this and understanding how the system works, and to live under a lunar rule and to worship the reverence and the sacredness of the earth and the planet that you're walking on. That's fifth dimensional consciousness at its higher vibrational frequency. Now, when the earth was and we have to remember it's the earth that's ascending into higher vibrations, not us.
Right.
The earth's a spaceship, and the earth is moving into higher realities. And as the earth's moved from third dimension to fourth dimension, then the Pleiades moved from fourth dimension to fifth dimension, then Sirians are moving from fifth dimension to sixth dimension, Arcturians are moving, so on and so forth. So the earth holds the balance of the whole hierarchy system as it evolves. Because we're on the planet, we're ascending with it. We're ascending on this planet. We're raising our vibration because we're going along for the ride. So these calendar systems that have been fighting with each other since the beginning of time, since the solar rule came in and imposed their idea of a calendar system on the lunar rule and began to suppress our ancient aboriginals and began to suppress the natives that walked on these lands with this rule. They're moving together. So when you move into fourth dimension, lunar and solar move into fourth dimension. When you move into fifth dimension, lunar and solar move into fifth dimension. You have to remember that everything moves. It's the same thing with darkness or pain or trauma. These are our treasures. They never go away. They move into the higher frequency with us. As much light as you assimilate and as fast as you vibrate, the darkness comes along with you, because it's the darkness that holds our molecules and creates that dense matter reality within our body.
Wow. That's the mouthful, man. But and again, I'm getting lit up here. I get lit up on all the shows, but I remember, 7 years ago when this started for me, and I went onto the streets, and I remember going to this place I used to go all the time, the sanctuary, and I remember looking up at the moon and speaking to it, and it was speaking to me. I had no idea what I was doing at all. And then when I started to pull in my aspects, there were three native spirit guides, and they told me, look at the moon, always follow the moon. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Because obviously this stuff comes in and it doesn't come in the perfect human language, but it makes sense to me now. It resonates. So again, I feel the congruence of what you're saying as I look back on my own journey and my own evolution. So yeah, that's powerful. Thank you.
Keep your eyes on the road and your hands up on the wheel. Good time.
That's like my favorite song, man.
Roll, baby, roll all night long.
There you go.
Yeah. Jim Morrison was into the lunar calendar himself. A lot of these musicians and a lot of these people practicing have knowledge about this lunar calendar. This isn't new information. It's ancient. It's over 10,000 years. And when you can look at the stars and when you can begin to chart your life around the planets, that's where you start to have an understanding of manifesting and generating. To manifest something in one's life is one thing, but to actually generate it into third dimensional form. So when you're intending your life and when you're flowing within a lunar calendar, when you're flowing with a lunar rule, your manifestations connect to the actual generation of your reality, and you can bring things into third, fourth, or fifth dimensional material very quickly, because everything that you're putting out there is going to a specific planet. And then as it spins around that planet and comes back, that's why when the 5 wanderers, these 5 specific planets that are unique to on their own, that are in the sky that go retrograde, when those planets start going in reverse, what they're doing is they're spinning back like a boomerang all of our intentions and our past that we put out there.
Wow.
And this is very important to know, because these ancient civilizations, and especially through my research of archaeoastronomy, they all worshipped the planets and the stars.
Right.
And all of their deities, their rituals revolved around that. As much as it revolved around the earth, they knew when to pick their crops. They knew when to to plant their seeds. They knew when to pick their plants to extract the oils. You know, when I was living in Ecuador, I did some research in the Palo Santo forest. So there's a specific tree that grows in Ecuador and Peru that's called Palo Santo. It's a wood, and when you burn it, it creates this incense. And when I was living with the people there, they would always extract the oil during a full moon, because during a full moon is when the resin and the oils in these plants secrete the most. So you want to be able to pick your herbs and pick your garden when the resins and the nutrients are the most highest. Now, what happens when you're living in a Gregorian calendar and a solar rule? You forget about all those things. Most food on the planet right now is genetically modified.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't growing and preparing their own food. We're slaughtering massive amounts of animals. We're polluting the whole ecosystem. And a lot of us are living in this mechanized world, and they're forgetting about the basic necessities, which is planting a seed, growing food, chopping wood, carrying water, fifth dimension.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we leave that lunar calendar out, and if we leave the lunar and the goddess out of our development, we're just going to continue to run on the hamster wheel of a solar rule Gregorian calendar that's ran by the Vatican and ran by these religious institutions.
Yeah.
And we all know this. There's nothing wrong with the solar rule. All I'm saying is, hey, solar rule, let the lunar and let the goddess come out of it, and let's equalize this.
So what you're saying is, because I have a saying is, we don't need to boycott, march, or protest, because it all happens from ourselves. But what you're saying is that we can still hold on to the framework of the solar civilization, which is the technology and such. But at the same time, we can take a personal responsibility by acquainting ourselves and embodying in our lifestyle the lunar calendar in the decisions that we make in our life to shift this thing to the balance it needs to be.
Exactly right, Todd. Yeah. You said it perfectly.
Yeah. So
yeah, and
go ahead.
That's very important. Go ahead.
No, go ahead and elaborate, because this question I have is a basic question for everybody.
No, I don't need to elaborate it, because you said it so poetically and perfectly.
It must be my lunar connection right now. I'm lit up, man. Mama Moon. So, I know it's been around for a long time, and it makes total sense, because somewhere we get lost in between all this stuff that people are getting, and this and that and this and that, and then you've got on the other end of it what now I would describe as the solar civilization and the solar paradigm, which excludes, as you described. So where would a person start, or like me? Where would somebody start with the basics of the lunar calendar, at an elementary level, and to build up through like the things you're talking about, such as the planet spinning in a different direction, and our intentions, our relation to our creative abilities, how that all works? Where would somebody start?
I guess the most simplest thing to do is every morning when the sun comes up, greet the sun. And just practice gratitude and reverence for the sun, and have an understanding that no matter what belief systems we have, philosophy, religion, we're all living under the same sun.
Yeah.
Then when you wake up in the morning and you breathe the fresh air, no matter what philosophy, religion, or belief system or skin color you have, we're all breathing the same air. When you wake up in the morning to look at that sun and you feel your feet in the grass and you're stepping on that earth, no matter what belief system, philosophy, structure that you have, we're all on the same earth. Every time you drink that water, you're drinking the same water as everyone else. And when that moon and when that sun is charging that moon up, and when the sun chooses to go to sleep and lets the lunar light up the sky, same thing. We're all under the same moon. And that's the most basic steps. And then from there, you'll start to smell the plants on the ground. You'll start to see the energetic system of the trees and the forest. And then from there, you'll start to feel your body connecting to the magnetic grid and the frequency of the planet. Yeah. And when your body connects to the magnetic grid and frequency of the planet, then you can go into a study. And most times when a man says, I want to connect to my feminine, I want to connect to my divine feminine, I want to understand the feminine, the first thing that a man will do is go into the exterior of it. And it's about going into the interior, right, in order to connect to the feminine. We're not going to be able to connect to the feminine aspect through women. We have to connect to that feminine aspect that's within inside us. Yeah. Tantra is not going to bring us there. Connecting with a woman and putting your hands on a woman and exploring her that way, you need to be able to go deep within yourself. You need to be able to go deep inside before you can exteriorize and go into a woman. We're penetrating the earth at an all-time frequency, extracting oils and extracting the life force from this planet. No one's asking permission. Yeah. They're not saying, Earth, am I able to penetrate you? And am I able to go into your oils and extract your vital blood and your life force from this planet to create a solar rule and a mechanized reality? And we have to treat every sister that comes in front of us the same way. Yeah. You just can't enter a woman's womb until you're able to enter yourself. Yeah. Wow. It's very important.
Yeah. And so, and this is great because, here I asked this question, which is a solar paradigmic question. Yeah, it was. It was because the first thing I said was, where can I go? I'm basically saying, where can I go study this? Where can I go read this? But what you're saying is by going through the, maybe it's the wrong word, but the ritual or the lifestyle, yes, way of life of, that's a frequency itself of the goddess, is to get up every day in gratitude for the things that we all share, the most standout things, which is the Mother Earth and the sun and the moon and all that, like you said. So that in itself triggers the intelligence, I guess, right?
You got it. You're very smart, Todd. Seriously, man, you have a high frequency of a genius. And you have a lot to offer yourself in connecting to this. And you're a very smart and brilliant man, because I have to create a whole story around it, and you can sum it up very quickly. And this is the secret of silver and gold. If you want gold, you become silent and speak when it's most appropriate. So you're gold, Todd. Remember that, man, because you don't need to speak so much, because when you do speak, it's very impactful. And that's why you have the skills and qualities to interview these women and be able to be present within their reality, because you understand they have the talking stick. And when a woman has a talking stick, you become silent, because I think somewhere in your system, you have some native background somewhere.
No, there's
somewhere
no doubt.
in your system, you have some roots in there.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah, and you have the understanding when a woman's silent, she has a talking stick. You're going to be very successful with this, Todd. I'm extremely excited to be witnessing your transformation and holding space for all these women, because you deserve it, and you're a solid brother anchoring this stuff in on the planet, and you're going to get everything that you came here to do and accomplish.
I don't know what to say, but thank you. Thank you for that. It's been a long road.
We need more men like you. out there doing the good work and sacrificing that solar rule and that bullshit corporate mentality.
Yeah.
Because when you die, you can't take any of this with you anyways.
Yeah. True.
You go into the ground and everything stays here.
Yeah.
So why are we going to be concerned and worried about stuff that we can't take with us?
Well,
If you continue to be kind and compassionate, you're well ahead of everyone else.
well, good, because I don't have anything to leave anyway.
Keep it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. 2 computers and a microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, this is powerful. This is good information. We need this information out there. We haven't had this information, not in 572 shows. We haven't. So it's a breath of fresh air. And yeah, I've been for months wanting to assist, not knowing how to assist the men in however that happens. And I think this is a big step to start getting this information and understanding out there. So I'm absolutely open to doing this on a very frequent occasion, frequent schedule, as we build this thing, because this information needs to get out there. And I love what you said about the whole, it's such a slap in the face, man, like, how do I learn about this? And then it's just as simple as really that feminine frequency, which we all carry, is just walking out there in gratitude. That mother frequency, that works both ways. I mean, it's so simple. It's just a slap in the face, like, wake up.
Well, the matriarchal system and the goddess are not looking for ascended masters. They're not looking for teachers. They're not looking for likes on Facebook.
Yeah.
They're not looking for superiority.
Yeah.
The goddess, the feminine, the lunar race, they're not interested in those things.
No.
They're interested in the earth. And to go off into a little bit of a higher octave right now, because we're nice and grounded and present within our lunar cycle and our lunar reality, all those planets that you look out in that night sky were planets that we once inhabited. We lived on Mars. We lived on Pluto. We've lived on Venus. We've lived on Mercury. And all of those planets we have destroyed.
Wow.
The Earth is the last planet viable within our local universe. We were Plutonians. We were Martians. We were Venusians. So all those planets are not dead planets. Those are planets that we have destroyed under solar rule.
Mm.
This planet here, this orb of Earth, is the warehouse of all the records. Akasha is not floating around in the sky somewhere. Akasha is within the Earth. And the Earth has all the information of every single one of those planets and everything that we did on those planets. In order to access Akasha, in order to access Shekinah, in order to access the Mother Goddess records under lunar rule, you actually need a key. That key is a woman's body.
Yeah.
That key is the divine feminine. That key is the womb. If you enter a sister's womb and alter those records under a solar rule and create corporations, trademarks, intellectual property, and the mass consumption of consumerism and animal products, all you're doing is accessing those records from those previous planets that we consume and destroyed and imprinting and projecting that into our present reality upon the Earth. And that's why that big planet that everyone's calling Planet X in their bureau is getting closer to us. Because if we end up destroying this planet, there's got to be another planet that's going to be able to house the records and the information.
Oh,
the Earth is a very powerful orb. It's not going anywhere. But the Galactic Council has an understanding of what's happened before. And each angel has had a bearing over each planet. whether it was Michael, Shamuel, Gabriel. Do not call them archangels, because if you call them archangels, you're bringing in archons. So it's not Archangel Michael, it's Michael, Uriel, Shamuel, Gabriel. The church calls them archangels because they like archonic frequencies.
Right.
I like to say Michael. And each one of those angels were a jurisdiction over that planet, which the natives and the aboriginals that lived under a matriarchal system called them the sky people. Because they were grounded and present within their reality, they knew the teachings of the sky people.
Wow. Powerful. It's all tying together. It's all integrating together. Yeah. That's just me speaking to me. but you know, it for all intents and purposes, what you're saying in this eternal moment, as we sit here right now, the earth is the center of the universe, because it's pulled in it's like you said, it's got all the records here. Everything's here.
You got it, Todd.
So we don't have to look, well, I mean,
we have to.
That's profound. That's profound. Basically, basically what you're saying is that this lunar and this relationship with the stars and the planets is basically it's a mirror, a direction. It's directions. It's a cookie crumb trail. It's the yellow brick road. You know, yeah.
In every civilization that has existed on their planet, built their temples and fortresses and their infrastructure around the constellations. So if you go into different parts of the world, you'll see that their temples and their structures were built around the Palladian or the Zolmoxian constellation, depending on what region of the planet you live on. And they built their systems around those planets because they knew that the universe revolved around the earth. This is the cool part. We have a thing called gravity here. So everything comes down to us. The interesting part is I have an understanding that the whole universe revolves around me. It revolves around no one else.
Right.
Because the whole universe revolves around me, that means I have to be very careful of how I'm living my life.
Yeah.
Now, if everyone come to the realization that the whole universe is revolving around them, this world's going to move into a higher frequency and octave that it's going to move into anyways. It's already prophesized. Yeah. So the whole universe is revolving around Todd Medina.
Yeah.
The whole universe is revolving around Alan. The whole universe is revolving around every individual that's walking around on the planet. The universe is functioning individually with each person. We're all living on the same grid. We're all one grid, having an individual process, and the whole universe is revolving around each individual person. That's the lunar rule. Because every ancient and every person knew that the universe revolved around them. The interesting thing, if you look at the plant kingdom, when you plant a seed and that seed sprouts and starts to grow out of the earth, that seed does not stop its growth to see if that seed next to it's germinating just as fast.
Yeah.
Each seed is going through its individual process when you have an understanding of the matriarchal system and lunar rule. They're not stopping their growth to make sure that the other seed is growing just as fast as them. The bamboo tree does not know that the oak tree is mightier than itself.
Yeah. Each in their own.
Yeah. Each in their own, but together in the same soil.
Yeah. And affecting each other by their own. Yeah. You know.
Ah, you got it, Todd.
Yeah. I'm digging it. I'm totally digging this.
And when you walk in your frequency, you don't need to worry about anyone else.
Yeah.
Because as long as you're doing your work.
That's right.
I believe in the healing works you do, Todd Medina. So I can do the healing works on myself.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, and what I love about it. It's a beautiful, infinite simplicity. All the stories go away. The stories are okay for you know, because it really, it's what you were talking about this with this, it's a personal responsibility. You said, you know, the universe revolves around you. I totally agree. And with that, you know, way beyond the cliche, it is a very serious level of responsibility, you know, that we have. We actually have domain. We actually have omniscience. You know, it's a simple, as simple as walking outside and being in gratitude of the grass and the sun and everything. I mean, it's not rocket science here. It's
simplicity.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing because the rhetoric's all getting old out there, if you ask me.
You know, it's fascinating because we need to start looking at the differences too, right? So men and women are created different. Again, we're living on the same grid, but a man has testicles and sperm, and a woman has ovaries and a womb. A man has a staff, so it's direct. A woman's body, I'm talking about the organism and the body, the scientific aspect of the human body. The woman's body is designed like an ankh.
Right.
So it's reciprocal. So when man and woman come together, the confusion part of a twin flame relationship or a divine complement or whatever you want to call it is they go into a oneness concept. And then what happens in these archetypal relationship patterns is they forget about the differences.
Yeah.
So because a man is direct and a woman is reciprocal because of the genitals and the sexual organs that we have within our body, when it comes to pleasuring a woman, the last thing that you should be touching on a woman's body is her breasts, her yoni, and her ass.
Yeah.
Because you need to reciprocate the whole body of a woman. And when you reciprocate the whole body of a woman, her aura begins to grow so much that you can begin to heal the room that you're in by expanding her frequency. Then from her body, you can heal the geographic location within a 50-mile diameter of the aura. And when that woman starts to vibrate and oscillate at a higher frequency, you can heal countries.
Yeah.
And the confusion is when a man sometimes go to a woman, they go right for the yoni. They go right for the vagina. They go right into sexuality because the man's direct, and they get confused thinking, oh no. And then when a woman goes to a man, they're touching, they're caressing, they're reciprocating. So in order to keep the lunar and the solar energies, these two calendars running between a man and a woman, is a woman needs to pleasure a man in his direct spot within his ligum or his penis, not to release fluids, but to keep his energy high so he can continue to pleasure her whole body. Mm-hmm. Maybe after an hour or so, then you can touch her sacred spot if she allows you to.
Right.
But it's about playing with the man's localized area, because man is localized. Again, not to bring a man into a release, because once a man releases his fluids, it's all over. So you want to keep his staff and his body oscillating and vibrating high with the intent so the woman can receive more pleasure.
Right.
And that's sensuality. And sensuality is the lunar. Solar is sexual.
Yeah.
You have Kundalina and Kundalini. Kundalina is the lunar, is the female. Kundalini is the masculine. How are we doing, Todd?
No, I gotta tell you that you know, I've experienced some of this, and of course, I have. You know, she has carried some wisdom into the game, but this is am I freezing up? Is that you?
You're froze up. There you go. Yeah.
But no, and I can vouch for that. I can tell you that you know, in caressing her pinky finger, you know, some fascinating soulgasmic in other parts, the spine, just putting my hand on her back. You know, I didn't have a clue. She introduced that whole thing to me, Herioscamos, the whole thing. But I can vouch for what you're saying. I don't know it into the depth you do. I'm still in the beginning stages of awareness, but I can tell the people out there that this is real. And we've talked about it on shows before. You're taking it to another level and explaining it, certainly, which is, I think, is extremely helpful from a man's perspective, because there's been so much of what we've seen out there over these past few years has been coming from the divine feminines out there. But more and more men are stepping up. So I think this is the kind of thing that they need to hear. This show is freaking incredible, what you're talking about and the way you're explaining it, because it is a way that a man can understand, especially this last example you're bringing up, because the first thing you want to do is you want to jump on what we think we're supposed to jump on, which this whole solar paradigm is built on, TNA, right? I mean, so why else would they go anywhere else? And and here's one thing I learned too in my relationship with Morgan, was she took performance off the table. She did. She just said, hey, you know what? You got a problem. You don't need to worry about that. And as a man, it took me a while to go, well, wait a minute. What do I do? So yeah, this stuff is real and it's important. I'm glad you're sharing it, because we need it. We need it. And the thing is, we need it from a nuts and bolts gut level, not some, yogi guru talking at you thing. This is actually practical, step by step. This is the communication frequency of the goddess, I think, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and that's how you've structured, from what I gather and from what I see you working with all these women, and allowing that freedom of expression. Is you've been vibing in this frequency for a very long time, and you were chosen for this, Todd.
Yeah, I feel that.
And the goddess chose you, and the lunar rule chose you, the matriarchal system chose you. You were chosen. This wasn't something that just happens to anybody. A brother wakes up when the goddess chooses him to wake up, because they're responsible, they're integral and integrity with it to the best of their capabilities. And it's about time a man like you is created this channel and this Soulology network to connect a network of amazing women that's on there, and have the odd brother come on too. You know what I mean? Because we can't exclude the brotherhood, because the brotherhood is very important. Just like the sisterhood, we need a solid brotherhood. Yeah. Where these brothers can feel safe enough to go, wow, yeah, there's stuff happening.
Yeah, there is stuff happening. I don't know if it's my Kundalini or my Kundalina.
Yeah.
But here's another thing. Here's another thing that comes to mind. Okay, that just jumped right out in my face with this whole masculine, feminine, as we take it from the one to the two, is that the man, you said the man's direct, right? Direct in the sexuality where he's coming from, and so on. Also in our communication, the man, and when I say direct, I don't mean like that's necessarily a constructive thing. And then she's like, what did you say? Receptive. Okay. So, yeah. So to me, something just jumped in my head here. It might take me a day or two to figure it out, but it's also in the way we communicate. And what I'm saying here is, and I'm not just speaking from my own situation, but what I observe, my life experience.
Yeah. But I think it's on his end.
And is communication and not so that's what's coming to me anyway. Let me go out and come back in. It might be my signal.
Yeah.
It's probably this Kundalini jacking up the signal. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay, that's better. And you know,
well, we got about 55 minutes into this thing. Hopefully they know that. Are we both frozen, or let me see here?
No, I'm good.
Wow, what a great show, man. I mean, this is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
How long are we doing
let me
this for,
see
Tommy?
how this is going. I got a lag here, so I can't tell right away.
Okay. Okay, that's better.
Oh, they can't hear me. I mean, I can't hear them. Can you guys go out and come back in? You'll be able to hear me. I mean, I'll be able to hear you.
Us? Okay. No, I'm good. So how do I go out?
I can't hear him.
I think it's.
If you guys can, there you go. All right. Yeah, man. What's going on with that? That's crazy. That's crazy. I've never seen anything like that.
You hear us now?
Yeah, man. That was insane. I'm sitting here watching you talking to me on the thing 20 seconds behind. I'm like, what? It's that Kundalini. I never even heard that. I never even heard that term until today. And now I feel like
it's Kundalini and Kundalini.
Yeah, I've never heard of Kundalini.
Well, because people don't want to talk about Kundalini because it's the goddess and it's the matriarchal system and it's the lunar rays. So it's very difficult. And you know what, Todd, you're an excellent communicator in allowing, taking a seat for the women to communicate. And communication is also very important within the bedroom too. And that's why it's always important to make sure that the man's always on the bottom and the woman's always on the top of any type of pleasure. So the woman needs to be dominant in the bedroom, and any type of pleasure that a woman's receiving, the man needs to be on the bottom and the woman needs to be on the top. It's the same thing with communication. Yeah. So when a woman's communicating, man needs to sit on the floor. Yeah. Because man's always used to standing up and the woman's sitting on the floor. Yeah. So man sits and woman takes the seat. It's the same thing in the bedroom. You know, the woman has the bedroom is her domain. That's her space, and that needs to be respected.
That makes total sense. And I got to say, okay, if you go back a year ago, and a little over a year ago, and you watch these shows that I did, 500, 600 shows back, there was an evolution. And I wasn't the best listener, and I had a divine feminine, letting me know what it meant to hold space. And I fought it and kicked and screamed and said, I ain't doing that. I'm, But I'm telling you, if you went back and looked at some of the stuff I did 15 months ago, it was scary. It was a level of unawareness, but I had the luxury of having somebody, very constructively, I perceived it sometimes as criticism, but I learned. So I'm going to tell you, it's a reality. It's a reality that, because I know, in fact, Elin shared a video I did 3 years ago on the 5th, which was about a week after I started doing videos. And I'm watching this crazy ass, shirtless, rugged, with a do-rag, putting on music. And I'm thinking, oh my God, no wonder I don't watch these things. And I was actually laying back here where I'm staying, and I was coming out of out of dimension or communication with Arcturian and Syrian and different aspects, and I was kind of in a funny place, right? And so all of a sudden I saw these 3 videos she shared from 3 years ago. So I started to watch the first one, and I hear this very shadowed, very masculine alpha dude going, but what stunned me was I was talking about the goddess in my own way. I was saying, show me a religion, show me a country that they treat women equally or even fairly. I said, I challenge any minister or preacher or pastor to do a show with me, because I guarantee you're not upholding the truth. Because the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to your house and knock on the door and ask your wife how you treat her. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that I can see where that was already coming out in me, as rough as I was at the moment. But as I'm looking back, I can see how I attracted in many ways, and even in an incarnation, or incarnations plural, because there was feminine teachers all along my journey, even like Elin, So I was able to raise the bar. Yeah, because Elin taught me stuff without words, just like the music, or even frequencies or colors and stuff like that. I had no freaking idea, I was living in that direct black and white solar paradigm. But like you said, coming out of the darkness, finding that frequency. But yeah, this is an amazing activating show for me. I hope everybody's enjoying it. Because this is why I do this. This is why I love this, is because I feel and know that the greatest activations and expanded awareness that we can experience is through these conversations, because we are the gods and we are the goddesses, and our truth speaks. Our truth has an incredible impact on our brothers and sisters. So I just want to thank you, man.
I knew you were an integral man, Todd, because when I called you up, because I haven't met Elin and I didn't know anything about Norway. I really didn't know anything too much about her. And when I emailed you and said, hey, Todd, I'm going to Norway because I want to chill with Elin for a bit. And I said, what's she like? And you paused and you thought about it and you said, she's very intelligent. That was it.
Yeah.
And I was sold on intelligence.
Yeah.
So there was no locker room chat with you.
Mm-mm.
There was no gossip. There was no sexualizing, any of it. It just came down to pure intelligence. And when you told me that she was a very intelligent woman, that's why I bought the plane ticket.
Yeah.
Because it's very important for men to see women as intelligent people. Yeah. Because they have a lot to offer. And even through science, women have more gray matter within their frontal lobe than men do, which makes women smarter.
Yeah.
They're able to run corporations and businesses more. They're able to run countries. They're able to be politicians. They're able to be presidents and premiers. Not just that, even scientifically, a woman's immune system and body is even stronger.
Yeah.
Not just that, you need to, on their own, when you're talking about God and you're talking about the creator, the women are the ones that are creating life. They're the ones that walk around and bear a child and bring that into reality. That's a miracle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I surrender. I am in service.
Yeah.
And man, I got to tell you too, I stepped out yesterday. I stepped out. When I say stepped out, as where I'm at on my journey. So I'm like everybody. I'm faced with challenges every day, and so I'm trying to get all this done, and things change every day and all that stuff. And so I step out of my universal aspects, and I become Todd over here, the human, and I put them all over here and say, okay, man, we need to have a talk. But yesterday I laid it all out and I went direct to that mother goddess energy. And I don't do this a lot. And I said, man, goddess, this is where I'm at. And I need some clarity. And the reason I'm saying this is because every single time I've ever done that with that frequency, with that vibration, with that essence, it comes in. It just comes in, and it's like a hot knife going through butter. It's just smooth. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I'm sold on it, and I'm serving it, and I'm serving myself by doing that. You know, I'm doing my job. That's how I feel, and I really appreciate you reaching out, and I can understand why it didn't happen a year or two ago.
Or 4 years ago.
Because 4 years ago, you can forget.
5 years ago, when I woke up in New York and I had that vision of everything that you were going to accomplish and everything that you were going to do, and I said, one day I'm going to connect with Todd and watch his feminine journey become internal and birth into this alpha man that in reverence and walking with the goddess and the lunar cycles. And I knew you were going to get there, Todd.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah, it was, and I'm seeing this in a whole different perspective because I came off the street 5 years ago. So for 2 years, I was, raising hell. But I was, I was doing my thing. I was connected. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I came off. And the first thing I did was I got online and I started meeting these women, and I look back now and I see the evolution of it. I mean, the first woman I met was like, this is straight sex, man. I mean, I'm cybering and I'm, and it was just like, but each level of it, each one that came into my path, I learned a little higher and higher and higher regard. I learned to be, like you were talking earlier about, that responsibility. And then so I think I met Elin, which would have been about 3.5, 4 years ago. And then it started to level up even more, And then, like I said, even with my friends that are women, Angie Love and Elin and just Dion Duplay, I learned so much from them. And it is what you said earlier about the whole universe revolving around yourself. And respecting that responsibility, which is starts and stops with the goddess, because the goddess is creator, is creation. Yeah, I'm blown away. I feel like I just took mushrooms.
Amazing.
That's what I'm wondering about, that Kundalini energy, because I actually felt the Kundalini before, obviously, but this one came out like that and went out like that.
Exactly.
It was like,
because
it was like, what is that, man? It feels good though.
The Kundalini moves straight up. The Kundalini moves outward. So when those two snakes, the reason why you see these two snakes moving through the bodies is because there's two separate energies that are flowing through. The Kundalini understands sensuality. It understands the inner process of the journey, and the Kundalini is the outer process of the journey. That's why most people are focused on Kundalini, but they're missing the Shakti. They're so much into Shiva that they forget that Shakti is even there. And it's very important to have those two balanced. When you have those two balanced, when a man such as yourself, in this situation, because I'm speaking with you, no offense to the other men on the planet, but right now I'm talking to Todd.
Yeah.
And because you're becoming mature as a man, and because you're choosing to search for the goddess internally, that you have the right or choice or free will to externalize a woman when you're ready to. Your divine partner, your twin flame, your complement, whatever the situation is calling to. But when a man hasn't deeply internalized with himself, he shouldn't be externalizing within a woman.
Yeah.
And a man becomes mature when they practice times of celibacy.
Yeah.
When a man becomes sexual, they become greedy. They can steal. They can cheat. They lose their connection to the earth. And I know it's very difficult because if people think when they move out of the realm of sexuality that they're missing out a big part of life.
No, man. I can tell you right now. I can tell you right now. I can tell you right now. I spent 10 weeks with her in 2017, and we slept together. You know, by you know, not, I'm not talking sexually. We slept together, and it was not the 3D sexual thing. It was the touching. It was the, you know, for me, it was not on me. It was on me opening those portals. I had, you know, and I obviously had some guy. Now this year, of course, it was, but it's still primarily, you know, 98% of the time, it was all what you're describing. And I got to tell the men out there, this shit's real. I mean, it's real when you look. We had what we had it. Let's see, one. Well, we had the first experience was a week after she got here, and what you're describing is what occurred, which was hands on the back, or, you know, and it was all about the non parts of the body that we're, you know, the ones that we don't go to, right? And the next thing you know, we're kneeling next to each other or looking at each other on the bed, and we start watching our faces morph into all the incarnations that we came from. And then you go a week later, and I realized this the other day. In fact, I told her this the other day. Of course, she looked at me like I was stupid. I said, hey, you know, when we were doing that, and I think it had something to do with me opening the portals in your direction on your body, because the next thing that happened, the room filled up with our ET aspects. You know, it filled up with our ET aspects, but it was directly linked to the what would you call it, the sacred sex, or the lunar frequency, the non-solar frequency of our sacred sexuality, which had nothing to do with the human sex. And I know you understand that, but it was directly linked to these visitations or whatever, or these experiences or whatever you want to call them. You know, in fact, in I think the last one, and I mean, we're sitting here in our human, we're looking at each other. She's giggling, and I'm like going, "What the fuck is going on?" You know, I mean, who are these people? You know, but they in the last episode, and there were many divine experiences, many of them, but they all came from this time we spent together, right? And in the last one, these two aspects came up behind me and entered my body. You know, literally just integrated with me. And I realize now, because I was told the other day, one was the Syrian and one was the Alpha Centaurian. But what I'm trying to tell everybody out there to substantiate or just to give my take on it, because this wasn't planned with the information Stephen's given us, is that the time that we spent together in this lunar, what I would call the lunar sacred sexual intimacy, which has nothing to do and looks nothing like where we all came from, there was a direct link to the visitations and the divine episodes that we have had, you know. So that's interesting, you know, because like you said, her body, the woman's body, is a portal. I mean, it is the key to the universe.
Yeah.
So,
direct access to the records.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I surrender. So, wow, this has been a powerful show, man. I mean, I am so grateful to both of you. And it is not a coincidence. And I remember when I was talking to you and you said, I'm going to Norway. And I said, hey, are you going to go? Do you know, my good friend lives there, Elin lives there. And you're like, what? I've been talking to her for like 10 days. And I'm like, well, these aren't coincidences. These are the, you know, the pockets of power that we're starting to see happen. So I'm just absolutely, you know, I'm over the wow, but I'm absolutely in gratitude to be sharing the space with the both of you. I love you both very much. You're a very important part of my life. You know, you really
Cool,
are.
man.
I've got 2 more shows to do. Maybe we can do another show in a week or so if you want.
Yeah, let's continue with this. I think it's great. I like how we're connecting with each other this way. It's more professional, you know, more more oriented towards intentional conversations. So whenever we want to hook up and have a powwow, we do it here, man.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And right in time for the 9/9 tomorrow.
Yeah.
I got a feeling oh my God, it's gonna be powerful. It's gonna be a powerful month. So yeah, I'd love to do it another 2-3 times this month for sure. All right.
Let's do it, Todd.
I love you both.
Peace out, man. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah.
Lunar rule.
That's right, man. All hail the goddess. That's for sure. Thanks everybody for joining us. I'll see you in 2 hours and 45 minutes.